Hi there, I'm Chris for Typical Gaming, and I've been asked by TT Combat to provide some painting tutorials for the new Rumbleslam team, Purloined Puissance. It's the latest team joining Diamond Oasis, and here I'm going to show you how to paint the Yarn Elemental. In this video, I'll be using these paints. Some of these paints are from my own collection, and some have been kindly provided to me by TT Combat. First, we need to paint the Yarn Elemental black. If you have a black primer, prime it with that and skip this step. I didn't have any at hand, so I had to use grey, then brush the black on. Make sure you've thinned the paint a little and use multiple coats, rather than aiming for just one coat, which could clog up the details. Using Shadowling Grey, we're going to highlight the areas we want to be black wool. Just target the tops of the strands that you want to be black. I'll be doing others later in purple, so I don't highlight those. I've tried to make it look like the black wool is wrapped with what will be the purple wool, so the deeper layers of wool are the ones that I mainly focus on here. Using Admiralty Grey, we'll highlight the wool's highest points, leaving the previous layers visible. Don't worry that it's a bit of a stark highlight, because we'll be able to tie it together in the next step. Mixing some thin and medium with black wash, we can make a nice blending wash, which we can use multiple layers of to get the strength we like. An unthinned black wash may be a bit too strong for what we're doing here, so by thinning it, we make a sort of gradual filter. Apply this over the black wool areas and allow it to dry before adding more layers if required for getting the look you like. Now we'll add some colour to the wool. Using Vexing Purple, we'll paint all of the wool that is left. As I mentioned before, I mostly went with black on the lower layers of the wool, as if the purple is protecting it. Vexing Purple is quite dark, so a couple layers should be used to get a stronger colour built up, so keep the paint thinned a little. Use Resplendent Purple to highlight all of the purple wool. Target the areas at the top of the purple strands, but leave the previous layer visible too. Thin down some purple wash with thin and medium, and apply it over the purple wool. This will help to blend the previous layers together and prepare us for the top highlight. Once the wash has dried, we'll use Resplendent Purple again and focus on the very highest points of the wool. Be sparing with this layer and allow the previous ones to show too. With Strigwa Flesh, we'll paint the thread that makes up the facial features. Be sure to get the thread in the button too. With Capo Red, we'll paint the button eye. If you'd rather, you can paint this before the thread, and that's probably a better way to do it. But if you're neat, it doesn't matter. Get the edges of the button too, and give it a couple of coats to ensure a solid colour. With raw linen, we'll get some highlights on that thread. I use small strokes to maintain the section thread look. For highlighting the button, we'll use Viscera Red. Thin down, I use 2 coats of it to get a nice bright highlight. It may take more depending on how thin you've made it. Back to the threads, since the highlight is dry, we'll use Umber Wash. This will add some colour depth and shading. Don't allow the wash to pool, particularly on the button. We want it to sit in the recesses but without flooding the model. On the knitting needle, we'll paint the head with Spotlight Yellow. Unlike other yellows, this is a strong paint with excellent coverage, so be careful not to get it on any areas around the needle. Once the Spotlight Yellow is dry and we have a good coat, we'll use Umber Wash to give the needle a nice shadow. While we leave that to dry, we'll re-establish the highlights on the thread with some raw linen. Again, we're using small strokes to highlight it, and leaving some of the previous highlight will give some depth. Gunmetal is a great dark silver, and we'll use that to base coat the thimble on top of Yarn Elemental. There's some small detail near the top of the thimble, and if the paint's too thick, it'll clog it up. With Platinum Star Metal, we'll get our first set of highlights down. Apply it to the rim of the thimble, band around part of the main body, and on the edge, and part of the top face of it. Okay, now that the wash is dry, we can use Capri Sunshine Yellow to highlight the knitting needle. Keep this thin and use a few coats to get a nice highlight of yellow. This is going to really stand out against the dark colours on the model. Thin down some black wash using thin and medium and apply this all over the thimble. It'll give us a nice little border for the rim, but also bring out those little details near the top. If you add too much wash, clean your brush and soak the pooling up. When it's dry, if you think you need some more, apply some, or just target key areas like those details. Our last highlight on the thimble brings back Platinum Star Metal, and we'll be very sparing with this. Highlight the edge of the top face, small parts of the rib, and a couple small strokes on the main body, but don't overdo it. We just want to be catching the brightest spots. With that highlight done, we've completed Yarn Elemental, and it's looking great, ready for the ring as soon as we've got it on the clear base. I think the yellow, red and silver really pops against the black and purples, and they really draw your eye to the face of the model.